Hey, book besties. I'm April, and welcome to No Shelf Control, the podcast for readers who choose books based on vibes, skip sleep for just one more chapter, and never quite stick to the TBR. If you're into twisty thrillers, nostalgic favorites, emotional roller coasters, and a little bookish chaos, you'll feel right at home here. Each week, I'll be diving into the reads we love, the ones that left us shook, and everything in between. So grab your coffee, your Kindle, and come hang with me. Hey, book besties. Welcome back to No Shelf Control. I'm your host, April, and this is episode 3. Today, we are going to be talking about when real life gets in the way of reading. So, reading during the busy seasons. And the reason that I came up with this topic is because we are about to head into a busy season. It's going to be busy for different people for different reasons. We are flying through August, unfortunately, flying through the end of summer, and we are headed towards when school starts for most, when teachers go back to work, when you might be starting a new job, you might be moving, you might be starting a new sport, your child might be starting a new sport. The holidays are coming. It's an endless amount of things that are about to occur in the next 4 months. So, I figured I'd touch on what I usually do during the busy seasons to get myself through and still carve out that precious time for myself to have a little self care, aka reading. So for me right now, like I said, we're getting to the end of summer. I have a toddler, so he's not in school yet. However, events and activities and all of that are starting to slow down for the summer but ramp up for the fall. So I'm seeing a little bit of that. My real estate work as my full-time job started to slow down a little bit now, but it has been one crazy spring/summer. Doing all of that, balancing motherhood, and also trying to carve out time for myself is something that I feel like it took me a really long time to figure out how to do it. And I feel like that ties into a lot of what we're going to be discussing today. And like I said, sometimes life gets busy, reading or any hobby takes a back seat. So I'm going to help you figure out how to navigate that. So to start, let's talk about what happens during those busy seasons and what the struggle is during that time. Like I said, holidays, school, sports, kids, moving. I mean, the list goes on. It seems like the busy season really hits us when end of summer hits because we're heading into fall, which is a short and sweet period of time here in New England. And then we go right into winter, right into the holidays, right into everything. And it goes by so quick. But we also have that time where we feel like, wow, we had so much going on, but did we ever do anything for ourselves? Maybe I'm speaking as a mother a little bit, but I'm also speaking as a human who just gets so busy. And sometimes all those priorities that you have stacked up, they take precedence over you. And I'm a huge advocate for if you have priorities, you must be one of them. You can't leave yourself out. Even if you're the last priority, if you have to do it that way, at least you're a priority. You can't live life and prioritize everyone and everything except for yourself because that's going to do more harm than good. So, to start, I'm going to do a little bit of a personal anecdote and talk about a time in my life that was extremely busy where I felt like I wasn't able to carve out the time for myself for anything. So, earlier this year, I'd say around March, I got really busy with my full time job to the point where there were days where my usual time where I'd be able to wind down, read a book, relax, early in the morning during my child's nap time or at night after he goes to bed. Those times, I was either so exhausted that I couldn't even think about doing anything except sleeping, or I wanted to be completely mindless and just put on a TV show and fall asleep, or I had work to do. So I really couldn't. Even though I was exhausted at night, I was having a really hard time falling asleep. I couldn't settle down. My mind was always going, all because I didn't carve out the time to just sit and relax and reset. And that is how I reset. I can't just look at a pillow and fall asleep like some people I know. My husband. Um, in order for me to wind down, especially at night, I need to actually take some time to reset my brain and really focus on something other than all the things, the mental load of being full-time working mom with all kinds of responsibilities. It's like I'm constantly doing a to-do list in my head. So at night, if I especially if I'm feeling like that, maybe I'll watch a TV show with my husband or maybe I'll watch something myself. But usually, in order for me to fall asleep, I'll have to read a little bit, if not for a couple hours. One more chapter. Yeah, okay. So at that moment when I started to really realize that, I said to myself, okay, I was doing really well. I was reading a lot. I was able to take the time for myself and take care of what I was looking forward to doing. And I need to get back into that. So I started to just kind of retrain myself. Okay, at night, even if you're really tired, just read a chapter, just, something. And I started to be able to carve out the time a little more, or at least recognize my child is sleeping. I don't have any dishes or laundry or work or anything to do right now. Let me take the next hour and read. Just something to, satisfy that self care that I need and make myself a priority again. One of the top priorities that I have is me. So we need to recognize that. And I will say I'm going to normalize this because I've heard people say that they feel guilty when they don't read. I know that sounds like such a broad statement, but I've heard friends of mine say, well, I feel guilty when I just can't pick up that book that I spent money on 2 months ago because I'm just too busy. Or I have all these books that I took from the library and I owe them back and I feel so guilty because I haven't read them. We need to normalize that it is completely normal to go through these busy seasons. And sometimes our priorities change, they switch up. Maybe sometimes they go a little crazy and out of whack, but we eventually get back into a groove with everything, not just reading, with everything. So let's now kind of switch gears and talk about strategies to keep it alive. So there are other little ways to fit in reading when you can't just sit down and open a book, such as audiobooks. They're amazing. They've been around for a very long time and they are now very popular. You can purchase audiobooks, you can borrow audiobooks from the library. It is super easy to do that. You don't even have to go to the library. You can just download the Libby app and download the audiobook or go on the library's website and do it that way. It's so easy. And you can just have any book that you're looking to read right at your fingertips. Pop in your AirPods and boom, you've got a book. So during the busy times, let's say you have a lot going on where, you couldn't exactly pick up a book, but you could listen to a book. Maybe you're cleaning your home, or you're doing laundry, or you're grocery shopping, or you're at the gym exercising, or you're working on something that is somewhat mindless, but you're able to still work on that project but listen to a book at the exact same time. I'm not saying somebody who's at a desk job answering phones can do this, but I'm just saying it can fit into other schedules. Maybe you're at work and you don't want to bring a book or you forgot to bring a book with you and you decide to pop in your headphones at your lunch break and you eat lunch and listen to a book. It's the best way to get a book read. Seriously, it's just the best. I used to drive an hour to and from work every single day and sit in bumper to bumper traffic. I crushed a lot of audiobooks. That was my time. It was my time to wind down and also listen to a book and get home safely. There's also other books out there like short stories. If you feel like maybe you don't have time to read even a shorter book, usually around 200 to 300 pages, maybe you want a book that's less than 200, maybe even less than 100 pages. There's plenty of short stories out there. You can Google them, you can look on Goodreads for them. They're everywhere. Another strategy to keep the reading alive is to set realistic expectations for yourself. If you're like me, you might have a reading goal for the year. Don't set it to such an astronomical number that you know it's going to be super hard to reach and then you rush. You have to like cram through books, especially towards the end of the year, just to meet that one stupid number. Don't do it. Just say to yourself, okay, how many books did I read last year? Or how many books would I like to read this year, realistically? I remember when I first started picking up books, I said, well, I'd like to read like 15 books this year. That's a little over like one whole book a month. And I did it. And last year my goal was 25 and I surpassed it. This year my goal is 50 and I'm at book number 43 now that I'm currently reading. That is because I set my expectations to what I knew I could do. I've had people say to me, "Oh, you're gonna meet your goals so early in the year, you should up your goal." Well, then I would never meet it, and I would be disappointed in myself. Because I also don't want the pressure to finish X number of books every month. I'm just kind of going with the flow, and I know how many books I can typically read in a month, and it's not that I'm setting myself up and saying, "Okay, it's the middle of August and you've only read X number of books and you have to read this many by the end of the month. What are you gonna do?" I'm not doing that. I just set a goal for myself. It's a realistic goal. I'm going to meet 50 books by the end of the year if I'm already at 43 in August. That's realistic. But if your goal is 5 books, 10 books, 40 books, 100 books, whatever it is, it doesn't matter as long as it's realistic to you. My sister-in-law, shout out to Anissa, she she reads so much, but she does audiobooks, physical books, and she has a Kindle. So she's got all kinds of ways to make sure she's able to read. And she reads over 100 books a year. And it's not that she's rushing through them. Those books she loves to read. She definitely has had some times where she's stayed up too late. Yeah, I'm talking to you. And she's, been up till 2 or 3 in the morning because she couldn't put the book down. But I mean, if she can handle it, and that's because she's just enjoying it, let the girl live. But if you're staying up till 3 in the morning because you feel the pressure to finish a book, what's the fun in that? Don't do that to yourself. And you really need to also embrace those cozy moments during the day. That might be when you're able to most likely take some time to read. So, like I said before, early in the morning before anybody else in the house wakes up, maybe get yourself a cup of coffee and read a book. Maybe during your break, maybe when your child's napping, or even at night after everybody's gone to bed, or at least the children, if you have children, have gone to bed, then you can set aside some time for yourself, even if it's only a half hour. It makes a difference. Now let's talk about some encouragements and maybe a little bit of bookish inspirations. One thing I've done in the past is I've kind of reframed the busy season I was in as a time to discover new reading styles or formats. Like I said, maybe if you're really busy, audiobooks might be the way to go. Or maybe if you're a Kindle reader, you need to get one of those nightstand arms. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see me doing it. And you have the arm and it sits over your side of the bed or your reading chair and you put the Kindle in it and then you get one of those attachments that has a little clicker to it and it turns the pages for you and you can kind of just lay there all cozy and just flip the pages without actually using your hands and just lay in one position without having to move around. That sounds pretty nice, right? Maybe you could try that. Maybe because the only time you can find time to read is when you're in your bed, whether it's in the morning or at night. Hey, it's worth a shot. And honestly, those items on Amazon, I have them. They're worth it. You can go to my Amazon storefront and find those items. I highly recommend them, especially if you're a Kindle girly. You gotta do it. Another bookish inspiration, think about books that are quick reads. Maybe you have a specific genre or a specific author that you read often or maybe even just read them time to time and they're quick reads for you. You get sucked into the book right away and you go through it super quickly. Maybe you can read it in a day or two, maybe even one sitting. I've had books like that. Maybe you'll need to lean into those during a busy season because it's not going to take you a month to read this book. You're not going to have to reread sections because you've forgotten what it's about. For example, one of my favorite authors is Frida McFadden. I love Frida. She never misses. I know I've said this in a previous episode, but I mean it. She's wonderful. And her books are not super long. They're usually just shy of 300 pages, give or take. And typically, I'm pulled right in from the start. The twists are twisty, the suspense is suspenseful. I can't stop reading. I've had a few where I've actually sat and read them in one sitting, but that was when I had a lot of time on my hands. Not so much anymore, but I can definitely get a Frida book read in 2 to 3 days flat, no problem, if I only have a little bit of time. It's just a lot of her books are the type of books that I just can't put down. So if you can think of any short, fun, bingeable authors or books out there, maybe that's the route to go during a busy season. Become somewhat of a mood reader, if you will. That's me. I'm a mood reader. It's basically when you just read based on your mood. And if your mood is, you know what, I don't have a lot of time, but I could really go for something that's just going to surprise me and pull me in or whatever, maybe those are the books that you'll need during this time. And I just want to remind everyone, your reading identity is not defined by how many books you read. Just because I said earlier that I've read 42 books, I'm on my 43rd book, and my goal is 50, doesn't make me any more of a reader than the person who just started reading, or the person who only likes to read maybe 15 books a year, or the reader who doesn't keep a goal and doesn't keep track and just reads at their own leisure. Your reading identity is defined by how much you love it, not by how much you actually read. So never see somebody setting goals like me and think, I don't have a reading goal. I need a reading goal to be a reader. Or I need to have a reading goal. Why don't I have a reading goal? You don't need one. You absolutely don't. That's something I set for myself. It's a personal thing. And you know what? If I didn't hit my reading goal, it's not the end of the world. Your reading identity is defined by how much you love books, not by how much you read. So please never feel pressure. Never, because that doesn't make it fun. The whole point of reading and having it as a hobby and a passion in your life is to feel good when you do it, not feel pressured to put on a persona of somebody who reads 50, 60, 75 books a year and pushes out content because everybody's expecting it. If that's part of your vibe, great. Because you know what? I love to do that stuff. I love to write book reviews and post them online. I have a lot of people who say, "Oh, I read your review and I thought I'd give that book a try." That's great. I'm glad my review could lead you to try the book. But if you want to just read and you don't want to do book reviews and you don't want to set a goal, that's fine. If you love reading, we're all the same. No one is better than the other. Okay, real quick before we wrap up today, I announced last week on the podcast that I have launched a book club for No Shelf Control. It is on Fable and it is called No Shelf Control Book Club. Easy to find. It is a public book club, so you can go right to Fable and sign up, and it is completely free to participate in this book club. We aren't going to start reading until September, but I picked a book already, and I'll grab it right here. So the book I have picked is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. So if you're able to see, if you're on YouTube or Spotify watching, you can see the book here. So this book is somewhat of a romance, fantasy type of book. I'll get into, the full description of it, of course, for those of us who are going to be in the book club. I do encourage you to join. Right now, it's on Fable, like I said, so you can go right over there. If you don't have Fable, you can go into the show notes or you can go onto my link tree and you'll see the link there to sign up and it'll bring you right to Fable. And there'll be more information on that as we get closer to September. Speaking of keeping up with the updates for the book club, I have started a newsletter. So if you would like to sign up for our newsletter, you can go right into the link tree and you can click the link to our Substack and you'll be able to sign up there for the newsletter. You'll get episode notifications, book club updates, book reviews, cozy reading extras, basically anything I want to share out to everyone. You'll be notified the second it happens. Okay, so that's the end of my episode today. And my final encouragement on this whole topic of busy seasons is that they don't last forever. So it's okay if you fall into a little bit of maybe a reading slump or you feel like you've been consumed by your busy life. Maybe it's time for a reset. And maybe that's what busy seasons are there for, to remind us that we need to set aside that time for ourselves. It shouldn't just be something that slips our mind or we put on the back burner. It's something that should be prioritized. In next week's episode, we're actually going to talk about book slumps. We're going to talk about how we accidentally fall into them, what causes them, how we can get out of them, and everything in between. Thanks again so much for hanging out today, book besties. Please remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and please follow along on the No Shelf Control podcast, TikTok, and Instagram. We'll talk soon, and don't forget, no shelf control is highly encouraged. Bye!